Everything you know about human evolution is missing one crucial piece. Most people believe humans conquered the world because we invented tools, others say it was language, some think it was fire itself, but what if all of them are only part of the story? Now imagine waking up tomorrow exactly as you are today. You have the same memories, the same family, the same life, but there's one difference: your brain is 1/3 smaller. Suddenly, finding the right words becomes difficult. Planning for tomorrow feels impossible. You struggle to solve simple problems. The ideas that once came naturally begin to disappear. The person staring back at you in the mirror still looks human, but something essential is gone. That almost happened. For millions of years, our ancestors walked the earth. They learned to stand upright. Their hands became more skilled. They adapted to changing climates and dangerous predators. Yet despite all of that, they remain just another intelligent ape. Then something changed. Not a king, not a war, not a miracle. A simple discovery quietly changed the future of our species forever. Without it, there would be no cities, no medicine, no music, no airplanes, no smartphones, and no civilization as we know it. To understand why, we first have to answer a question that puzzled scientists for decades. Why do humans have such enormous brains? Your brain makes up only about 2% of your body weight, yet even while you're resting, it consumes nearly 20% of the energy your body produces. That's an incredible amount of power for such a small organ. In nature, energy is everything. Every heartbeat, every step, every breath comes with a cost. Evolution doesn't reward creatures for being intelligent, it rewards them for surviving. If a body wastes too much energy, it disappears. So by every rule of evolution, the human brain should never have existed. Our ancestors lived in a brutal world where every calorie had to be earned. Food was unpredictable. Hunts often failed. Days could pass with almost nothing to eat. In a world like that, how could evolution possibly afford to build the most energy-hungry brain on Earth? For years, scientists searched for an answer. Some believed eating more meat explained it, others argued it was better tools or social cooperation. Each theory solved part of the mystery, but none explained where the extra energy came from. Because before humans could invent, before they could build, before they could dream, they first needed enough fuel to power the organ that made those things possible. Somewhere in our distant past, our ancestors discovered a way to unlock far more energy from every meal than any species before them. That single breakthrough didn't just change what humans ate, it changed what humans could become. To understand what changed humanity forever, we have to travel back nearly 2 million years, a world with no cities, no farms, no supermarkets, no kitchens. Every sunrise began with one question: would you find enough food to survive today? Life wasn't measured in years, it was measured in meals. Some days our ancestors found fruit hanging from trees, other days they dug for roots buried deep beneath the ground. When they were lucky, they scavenged meat left behind by larger predators. But nothing came easily. Roots were tough, plants were full of fiber, raw meat was difficult to chew. Every meal demanded enormous effort before the body could use even a fraction of its energy. Imagine spending hours searching for food, only to spend even more hours chewing and digesting it. It was a terrible bargain. The harder you worked to stay alive, the less energy your body had left for anything else. Now add one more problem. Your brain. Even back then, the brain was already one of the most expensive organs in the body. Every improvement required more calories, but calories were incredibly rare. Evolution had reached a dead end. A larger brain could help our ancestors survive, but building a larger brain required energy they simply didn't have. It was a perfect trap. Nature couldn't just create extra calories out of nowhere. Every improvement demanded a sacrifice. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors remained stuck in that cycle. They became better hunters, better climbers, better survivors, but their bodies still operated under the same harsh limit. There simply wasn't enough usable energy to support the next step in human evolution. Then, something extraordinary happened. It wasn't a new animal, it wasn't a magical plant, it wasn't a sudden mutation, it was an idea. At some point, one of our ancestors placed food over a fire. Maybe they wanted to warm it, maybe they dropped it into the flames by accident. Maybe curiosity did what evolution never could. No one knows exactly how it happened, but the moment they took that first cooked bite, history quietly changed forever, because something incredible was happening inside that food. Heat was breaking down tough fibers, proteins were beginning to unravel, starches were becoming easier to digest, dangerous bacteria were dying. Without realizing it, our ancestors had started doing something outside the body that digestion normally had to do inside it. Cooking had become a second stomach. For the first time in millions of years, food was giving back more energy than it cost to eat. It was a tiny change, almost impossible to notice in a single lifetime, but over thousands of generations, those extra calories began to transform an entire species. Evolution finally had something it had never possessed before, an energy surplus, and with that surplus, everything became possible. For decades, scientists searched for the missing piece. How could evolution afford a brain that consumed so much energy? Then researchers noticed something remarkable. As the brains of our ancestors grew larger, another organ was becoming smaller, their gut. At first, that made no sense. Why would evolution shrink the very organ responsible for extracting energy from food? The answer lies in one of evolution's simplest rules. Your body runs on a limited energy budget. It can't endlessly power every organ at maximum capacity. If one system becomes more expensive, another has to become cheaper. Chimpanzees and gorillas survive on tough plants that take hours to chew and digest. To process that food, they need massive digestive systems. Humans took a different path. Instead of evolving bigger stomachs, we found a better way to prepare food. Cooking softened meat. It broke down plant fibers. It released nutrients that were once trapped inside. It even destroyed many harmful microbes before they entered the body. In other words, fire began doing part of digestion before food ever reached the stomach. Suddenly, our bodies didn't need to work as hard to extract calories. Digestion became cheaper, and evolution invested those saved calories somewhere else, the brain. Generation after generation, that investment grew. Slightly larger brains led to better memory improved hunting. Better hunting provided more food supported even larger brains. It became a powerful cycle. Each generation inherited a brain just a little more capable than the last. Eventually, our ancestors began making better tools. They learned to cooperate in larger groups. They planned for seasons that hadn't arrived yet. They imagined things that didn't exist. They didn't simply react to the world anymore. They started changing it. That was the real revolution. It wasn't the discovery of fire alone, it was discovering how to use fire to transform food into energy. Without that breakthrough, the human brain might never have reached its modern size. Every scientific discovery, every language, every invention, every work of art, began with a brain that evolution could finally afford to build. But every evolutionary advantage comes with a hidden cost. The same reward system that encouraged our ancestors to seek calorie-rich food still exists inside your brain today, and in the modern world, that ancient survival instinct has become one of our greatest challenges. For nearly 2 million years, our relationship with food worked exactly as evolution intended. Calories were rare, finding sweet fruit was a lucky day, fatty meat was a reward worth fighting for, missing a meal wasn't an inconvenience, it could mean death, so evolution built a brain that celebrated every high-energy meal. Whenever our ancestors found food rich in calories, their brains released dopamine, a powerful chemical that encouraged them to seek it again. That wasn't a flaw, it was one of humanity's greatest survival tools. Without those cravings, our ancestors might never have eaten enough to fuel their growing brains. For hundreds of thousands of years, that system worked perfectly. Then, the world changed. Evolution moves incredibly slowly, civilization moves incredibly fast. In just a few thousand years, forests became farms, farms became cities, cities became factories, and factories filled supermarkets with more food than our ancestors would have seen in an entire lifetime. For the first time in human history, the biggest challenge wasn't finding enough calories, it was avoiding too many. But abundance wasn't the only change, food itself changed. Scientists learned exactly how the human brain responds to sugar, fat, salt, aroma, texture, and crunch. Instead of simply growing food, we started engineering it. Many modern foods are designed to activate reward systems that evolved in a world where calories were incredibly rare. That's why it's so difficult to stop. After one handful of chips, why one cookie often becomes 3, why dessert still sounds tempting, even after a full meal. It can feel like a lack of willpower, but in many cases, your brain is simply following instructions written millions of years ago. The system isn't broken. The environment changed faster than evolution could keep up, and that's the great irony of being human. The same brain that helped us conquer the planet now struggles in a world overflowing with rewards it was never designed to resist. So, what was the food that made us human? The truth is, there wasn't one. It wasn't a magical fruit. It wasn't a special animal. It wasn't a single meal that changed history. The real breakthrough was learning how to unlock more energy from the food we already had. Cooking softened meat, broke down tough plant fibers, destroyed dangerous microbes, and released calories that had once been locked away. For the first time, an animal wasn't just adapting to its environment, it was transforming it. That simple discovery changed everything. the extra energy built larger brains imagined better tools found more food, and more food fueled even larger brains. It became a cycle that transformed a vulnerable ape into the most intelligent species on Earth. Every bridge, every airplane, every book, every work of art, every scientific discovery, every smartphone, every idea that has ever changed the world, began inside a human brain, and that brain exists because, somewhere in our distant past, our ancestors learned to cook. In many ways, every civilization we've ever built is an extension of a campfire that burned hundreds of thousands of years ago. Your body still carries the fingerprints of that ancient world. Every craving, every meal, every bite, is connected to a story that began long before history was ever written. So the next time you sit down to eat, remember, you're not just feeding yourself, you're taking part in a journey that transformed an ordinary ape into modern humanity, and perhaps, the food that made us human, is still shaping who we become today. If you enjoyed this documentary and want to explore the incredible science behind the human body and the food we eat, subscribe to the Food Anatomix, because we're only just beginning. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.